Today, we discuss UNLV and if the student government we have representing us doesn't represent something misinformed. Then we discuss Trump and the report card for his first month. And finally, we end on the State of the Union of the media. Thank you for joining us. I'm James Schaefer, and this is The Scramble. I'd like to begin with something that has nothing to do with Trump or politics on a wider scale. No Chuck Schumer, no John Oliver, no Donald J. Trump. Instead, I want to remind the viewers that are watching online and those around the Las Vegas Valley that this show is recorded on campus at UNLV, and as such, we would like to shine a light on what is happening on campus and the problems we face here at large. Now, the operating arm of student government that we have here on campus is something called the Consolidated Students of University of Nevada, otherwise known as CSUN. It is an undergraduate-made student government with the purpose to represent students, build on school spirit, and make the college experience worthwhile to have. Something that I have always heard from the handful of CSUN senators is that the main issue that they have tried and are still trying to remedy is student involvement on campus. To manifest the agenda to attack the lackluster amount of involvement with the continuous programs to inspire students and to foster school spirit. We have clubs and organizations like Star Wars Club and Black Lives Matter at UNLV, ads like this one run online to show the attractiveness of our university.
Rebels take chances and inspire action. Rebels are daring and diverse, curious and creative. Rebels are different. And in our differences, we come together to discover, to innovate, to succeed in a community like no other. We are UNLV. We are Rebels, the University of Nevada, Las Vegas.
Ah, so inspiring. But something that has been said too often is that the plan or agenda of UNLV Housing or CSUN is going to be that the next thing that they will fix is school spirit / involvement and end the sentiment of UNLV being seen as a commuter school. Well, today I want to take the time to rebuke UNLV Housing and CSUN for their continuous agenda of saying they will turn the tide in this campus being in low school spirit / involvement and a campus that is omitted in identity. Now, I've been at UNLV for 3 years. The statistics and facts that will be provided will be cited, and in no way is the following meant to be a personal attack on my behalf on the school, but rather an observation turned into a counterpoint meant for those that have sought to make the school a better place. We at the Scramble find the current agenda is just simply misinformed. In order to begin this conversation, we must first establish for those at home and online or watching on campus what UNLV is. What is our identity? What is our spirit like? What is it that the organizations I mentioned are trying to fix? Well, going off of the most recent statistics, UNLV stands on these points. UNLV is currently the second most ethnically diverse university campus in the entire country. The average age for a student here is 22 years old. Our enrollment stands at 23,801 undergraduate students, and out of those, only 7% live on campus. So 93% of the people that go to UNLV do not live at UNLV. This said, here are the takeaways. We are multicultural, we are young, and we don't live on campus, we live right outside campus. This latter point I want to point out is the most important to remember when understanding the approach of our Student Senate organization, CSUN, as well as UNLV Housing. It's that they see it mostly as their mission to rid the campus of the commuter sentiment and incubate campus culture into something that is identifiable and strong. The term I have now used a couple times there is, quote, commuter campus. I'd like to clarify with some facts. According to U.S. News, we are tied with Florida International University as the most commuted school in the entire country. This means that 93% of this school, that's something around 21,000 students, live off campus and drive here between jobs and just between general life. It also should be added that a common consensus in the Valley, and I feel like I can say this since I've lived in Las Vegas for all of my life, UNLV's other acronym definition instead of University Nevada, Las Vegas has meant to students something else. UNLV, you never leave Vegas. Since most high school advisors from Rancho to Foothill tell and advise students to stay in town due to the fact that the students are residents. They get cheaper pricing since they are also natives. So the allure to stay in Vegas and go to university here persists like a college siren, beckoning high school students throughout the valley. Cheaper, and local education. Now, on the second side of our counterpoint is that once students go here, they don't participate, and also they just don't know that CSUN exists. The best way to provide evidence of the sentiment that exists on campus about CSUN being ignored or not even known by the students that go here is an article by Elizabeth Sinatra from the former Rebel Yell, who did a story titled, "Do You Care?" In it, she wrote, quote, "Student government as it now stands is neither revered, respected, nor even noticed by those it should be serving. We still hear the mournful cries of, 'This campus is so apathetic on one hand, and so who cares on the other,' end quote." On the other side, now that article may seem like an apt example of the voices on campus now, but that article I just read is from the Rebel Yell issue from March 20th, 1974. The mournful cries of students not knowing CSUN exists have persisted and maintained as a persistent problem for the past nearly 50 years. And as much as I'd like to raise my hands and praise CSUN and say that the perception of them has changed, I can speak on behalf of a third-year student myself as of 2017 to say it hasn't. But I want to be fair here and show that my opinion does not get the best of this program, because I'd like to provide a rubric that has been used to measure student involvement, since such a thing is hard to measure. Most universities tout that involvement rate based upon how many registered student organizations they have. Well, according to Collegiate Link, the website that has come to be the measurement tool for student organizations at UNLV, shows we have around 358 student organizations on campus. Everything from the Academy of LDS Dentists to Zeta Phi Beta sorority. Well, allow me to prevent another university for just pure comparison's sake. Let's use a nearby university, Arizona State University, which is populous and has high involvement according to its website, has approximately 1,000 student organizations. But even then, I think we should measure outside the West and look at a university which is recognized as having a high student participation rate, Michigan State University to be exact, which according to its website has something around 17,220 different organizations. Once we start comparing universities, you think that the second most ethnically diverse campus in the United States, us, would have more organizations. But again, our 358 pales to the rate of 1,000 from ASU or 17,000 from Michigan. And what are the finances backing the 358, I hear you ask? Well, it's CSUN's total allocation for university program funding comes to the grand total of $1.5 million. And that would be enough for most people to fall out of their chairs to hear that the student council most students have never heard of spends $1.5 million for registered student organizations. But if you haven't fallen out of your chair yet, this should do it. What do you think the total annual budget for CSUN is? $2 million? $2.5 million? Well, according to that same docket, the total associated student budget is $7.3 million. The organization most students have never heard of holds on to $7.3 million. If you'd allow me to let me break down the budget for this year, student clubs and registered student organizations like Veterans Club, Deaf Studies, and the Armenian Student Association receive $1.3 million for advertising, banners, speaking fees, food, and workshops. University programs like student advising, math tutoring, and scholarships receive $1.3 million. Programs and services like the Children's Center and Recycling Center receive $3.3 million. And the student government we're talking about for its salaries, banquets, and training programs account for $1 million. It does not seem to this program that finances are much of an issue for student organizations or programs or services that benefit students. Things that would start or incubate more student involvement are receiving ample funding, it seems. So why is it that we still have issues with student involvement on this campus? The money is there. Where's the school spirit? Well, it is the view of this program that the main problem is that we are a commuter campus. In this university, college life is non-existent because of the fact that 93% of students that go here don't live here. College classes are something students do between two part-time jobs. Many students sacrifice the, quote, college experience so they can have a career outside of college. But again, I want to be fair. A defense that has come in for CSUN is that student involvement is stagnant because of the low amount of student housing rather. But here's what I would like to argue to that. Dating back to the articles of the Rebel Yell to 1974 and looking at all the progress that has been made with the Dayton Complex opened in 2004, the Tonopah Complex opened in 1966, or the South Complex opened in 1990, or the Upper Class Complex opened in 1988. Sure, have incrementally led to more students on campus. And you can argue incremental change. I'll grant you that. But if the percentage we increased from 1966 to 2017 is 0% of students living on campus to 7% of living on campus within the work time of 50 years, shouldn't we expect a higher result or workload or more accomplishable tasks? We have had CSUN tackling the task of student involvement since 1974, and now in 2017, we have an increase of school involvement of 0 to 7%, and the cost of student organizations at $1.3 million. Some see the CSUN government as unnecessary or non-existent for the pure purpose of not knowing they exist. But it is the view of this program they are necessary. Having student representation is necessary. Having a government that acknowledges problems on our behalf is necessary. Having a collection of students that foster interest in government and civic engagement and civil service is necessary. But the high-task agenda of solving student involvement is not necessary. Tackling the commuter campus issue is not necessary. Citing the problems on campus with more money is not necessary. Of course, unless you want to give the Scramble a couple $1 million, we wouldn't complain. All in all, we respect student government of CSUN. We just hope they would respect the facts and respect the history of this university. Lack of student involvement is not a problem for this university. It's an attribute of the college's character. That's our time for a break. We'll be right back with our discussion on Trump's first month in office after this.
You're going to need me. You're going to need all of us. You're going to need the next generation of leaders to face the challenges the future will bring. And we promise we'll be there when you need us.
Thank you for staying with us. Today, for our discussion is UNLV political science graduate and political analyst for the Scramble, Marisa Sardi. And also with us today is president of the UNLV College Republicans, Jacob DeVille. Thanks for being here, guys.
Thank you.
We start on our discussion on Donald Trump's first month in the Oval Office. From the travel ban to a flurry of executive orders, Trump has been riddled with complaints and praise. Is Trump's first month all that controversial? Marisa, I want to start with you. I want to get a comprehensive list from you for the issues or the complaints that you have on Donald Trump's first month in office. What does it boil down to for you?
Well, it's been an intense for several weeks, and it's hard to pick one thing that is the most troubling because there's been so many.
Well, if you were to choose like 5 or 6, what would be those first 5 or 6?
I think the first would be the Muslim ban, the travel ban, as he calls it. The alleged ties to Russia would be another one. The fake news, aka anyone who criticizes him and says anything bad. Maybe how he takes to Twitter whenever someone is mean to him, like Meryl Streep or Saturday Night Live. But he has a lot of time because he doesn't do those daily intelligence briefings now, so that's probably why. But I think overall, the most troubling thing is that he is so focused on his campaign promises that he's forgetting that America is his constituency now, not just the people that voted him into power. So he's issuing executive orders and banning Muslims and doing all these other things because that's what his constituency wanted, but that's not what America wants.
So, Jacob, let me pass this off to you. That's one side of the aisle and one way of viewing it. On your side, what do you think of Trump's first month? Does it boil down to the travel ban? Does it boil down to the executive orders? Does it boil down to the fake news rants? What do you really think? Is it successful, or where does it land for you?
It's completely successful. And if I had to characterize the first month, it would be a promise kept. Look, he promised he would appoint a conservative to the Supreme Court bench. He did so. He promised that he would put national security at the forefront and focus on America first, which he said. He's done. He's moved to secure our southern border. He picked 7 countries that were identified by Congress and identified by the Obama administrations as countries of concern. And he said, we're not going to ban movement from these countries, but we're going to halt it to make sure our processes are proper to protect the American people. There's nothing wrong with that. And it was actually an authority given to him and granted by Congress itself with the Immigration and Naturality Act. So these are He's acting within his power. He's rescinding orders. He's cutting regulations. There's a lot to be happy about. I'm certainly happy. His constituents are happy, and that's what America wanted. We wanted to move in a different direction, and look what we're going for. We're moving in a different direction
actually,
here.
3 million people less wanted that, but I mean, okay.
It was the
So-
Electoral College that
Okay.
decides the presidency, and that's what happened.
I understand that, but I'm
it was
saying
like
a majority
three-
of Americans
Well, so
don't.
then,
It was
Marisa,
majority of states believe that we should go in Donald Trump's
Yeah,
direction.
Well, states aren't his constituency.
so
people
Marisa,
are.
going off of what Jacob has said, is that so far a sufficient answer for you? Where do you find qualms?
No, it's not a sufficient answer because there are other countries that are terrorist threats that aren't on the list, like Saudi Arabia and Bangladesh and Pakistan, all places that Donald Trump has business and cares about. So to say that it's only about protecting the American people, it's not. It's about banning a religion. He said that in his campaign that he wanted to register all Muslims. I mean, what more can he say to prove that he just doesn't want them? And there's even a religious clause where Christians can come in, but he doesn't specify about Shia Muslims or Shiite Muslims or any of that. It's just about these 7 countries are predominantly Muslim.
Jacob, your response?
Can I respond to
You
that?
go, of course.
First of all, out of the most populated countries of Muslims in the world, 9 out of 10 of them are not on the list. So this is not a Muslim ban. This is the fact that these countries are susceptible to terrorism, and we have to make sure that the American people stay safe. And you have an issue with the reason why those particular countries are on the list and others aren't. Take that up with Congress. Take that up with the Obama administration. It's a simple national security measure.
It's not that simple, though, because the places that are prone to terrorist attacks like Pakistan, Nepal, Bangladesh, and Saudi Arabia are not on the list.
Yeah, but they all have working governments that we can collaborate with.
They really don't.
and,
But
if you wanna
if
talk
you're worried
about
the
the-
terrorist
Well,
threats,
so-
then help the government.
So right there we have, in a certain nutshell, the argument when it comes to the travel ban. But let's move on to something else that was brought up by Marisa, which was the amount of confidential meetings. What was it? The briefings that.
Yes.
Where do you fall on that? There have been issues surrounding the amount of meetings that he has gone to. He's gone to Mar-a-Lago a lot. Where do you find that his work falls in with the successes that you have found?
As him as a businessman is what you're asking?
Sure. However,
I
you'd like to
think-
provide context for
I
it.
think Donald Trump promised that he would make sure that business in the United States would be competitive and there would not be unfair advantages around the world. And he also promised that he would make sure that American jobs stayed in America. And that's what he's done. You can't always do that on the world stage, especially with Obama. He did the Iran nuclear deal all behind closed doors. And the reason Michael Flynn was ousted and other issues surrounding the so-called Russian issue that you guys want to bring up so much, it's not the case. The Trump presidency has been transparent with what they have been doing.
By
On Russia.
barring media outlets from press briefings and calling them fake news, I don't think that that's transparent.
No, he's coming back. Everybody has an obligation to call the news media when they have misled the public. There's been many issues, especially about the Martin Luther King bust. That they said that was removed from the White House on unfounded testimony or unfounded proof or investigation.
So one false story then means that you can bar the entire media outlet, call it fake news, when the media is the one who holds the president accountable. That's how the people know what's going on.
And just to provide objective context, that story was withdrawn. I do see your point, though, but let's press on that. Let's press on the Russia ties.
Okay.
So then, Marisa, where do you find the controversy with Russia really begins and ends?
This is the thing. Even if it didn't happen, there's still a perception that something is going on there. So why not investigate? If you're all about transparency, then investigate and show that there is nothing there.
Jacob, your response?
Okay, they did investigate the Michael Flynn issue, and I believe it's an ongoing investigation by Congress. But there was no laws broken there. People want to bring up the Logan Act, but the Logan Act has never been prosecuted on. And that's over, 100 years since it was introduced to the United States. If you want to talk about controversy and transparency, there's actually a story that came out about Obama administration or Obama as a candidate conferring with the mullahs in Iran. So where was the objectivity of the news media when Obama was in office?
Marisa?
All of a sudden, out
we're
of nowhere.
talking about Trump, not Obama. We're talking about Trump's presidency and being transparent in his. But
right
the
now,
press did hold him accountable. Obama was not well versed in foreign policy, and the press did hold him accountable on that. But he's not doing the things that Donald Trump is doing right now.
So let's hold that stance. We have a response for Russia and we have a response for Obama, but I want to take something that you said and talked about jobs and the jobs that Trump was bringing back. Where do you find that Jacob's argument finds truth and honesty, and where do you find that it falters? Where do you find that the unemployment that Trump did go into office saying that he was going to bring, where do you find that there are issues with that?
Well, Obama did it, he lowered the unemployment rate. So I think to say that he inherited this huge mess, Obama inherited a mess too. If we're going to bring up his presidency, he inherited a mess too. So I do think that, yes, there needs to be job growth in America, but at the same time, I don't think Trump's idea of job growth is what is best for the country. For instance, coal mines, that's a dying area. I mean, when Hillary Clinton said, we'll bring you better jobs, they said, no, we're going to do this. And I think that sometimes Donald Trump doesn't necessarily not know what he's talking about, but he guarantees things that he can't give to people,
Jacob,
especially in jobs.
Well, 60,000 coal miners that were put out of work are the reason why Donald Trump got elected. It was because the Democrat Party, led by Hillary Clinton, weren't able to reach the people and provide a viable and a workable plan for jobs in the country. And this does come back to transparency in the media. The Obama administration was not held accountable for the things that they did. The median income for families over the past 8 years is actually lower than when he took office. We have more people on food stamps or social welfare programs than when he started in office. So yes, Trump has an issue. Trump inherited $20 million in debt, and most of that, or a large portion of that, was accumulated under the Obama administration.
Let's hold on to that point, end with kind of a more of a communal stance, so we exit this room with a lot more coexistence than we do with anything else. Tell me in one statement what you think the presidency, Trump's presidency, will look like in 3 years, in one statement.
I believe a lot of people in this country will be happy with Donald Trump and supportive of him in 2020.
And Marisa, one statement about the Trump presidency 3 years from now.
I believe the opposite. Either he will be impeached or people will want him to be impeached.
Well, if it happens, you'll see it here on the Scramble, and we'll talk about it. I want to thank our guests for coming in here and having a wonderful, lively discussion and engaging, and we'll be right back with our final segment after this.
It's about putting others first. It's doing your best at whatever you do. It's all of these. It's commitment. This message is brought to you by the U.S. Air Force.
A discussion we have had before on this program is the issues of fake news and the issues of when you can and can't talk about the president, whether you should like versus support the president. Well, we would like to shine some light on a spokesperson for News Satire who has since before talked about Donald Trump. Of course, that would be Jon Stewart, formerly of The Daily Show. Jon Stewart went on Late Night with Stephen Colbert to have a few words with the media about covering Donald Trump, saying this.
Well, now it's over. Well, good riddance, I say. Kick him to the curb. Media. Thank you. It is time for you to get your groove back, media. Because let's face facts, you kind of let yourself go a little bit for these past few years. Put on a few pundits, obsessing 24 hours a day, 7 days a week about this one guy. What's Donnie up to? Did he say anything about us? You think he's going to come on our show? Do you think he even likes us? He doesn't even have to come on. He can just call us. Oh, Donnie, please, just let us know you're okay.
Jon Stewart's funny yet impassioned claims highlight the perceived bloated importance those in the media have given Donald Trump. As a journalism student, I'd like to compare the current state we are in with the confines of history. Sure, journalism right now is experiencing a certain type of puberty. The growth of citizen journalists and the unverifiable mess of information streaming over our phones is difficult to weed through. But there have been worse states of media in history. Look at this clip from CNN's The 70s, where during the Nixon investigation, a paper came to the public's light called The Enemies List by President Nixon, where a journalist reading the enemies list says his own name.
A list of enemies that was compiled at the White House. One, Arnold Picker of United Artists, described as a Top Muskie fundraiser. Second, Alexander Barkin, the national...
Once the enemies list was revealed, Daniel Shore, a CBS News correspondent, is reading off this, and he reads his own name.
17th, Daniel Shore of the Columbia Broadcasting System in Washington. The note here is a real media enemy.
I remember thinking at the time, what is going on? Is this really believable?
We have been in worse states of the White House attacking the media, but the current state under Trump is not good, I'll grant that. Let me just put it out there. The current state of media is on the defense under the president. For a long while now, it has been the observation of this journalist that major broadcast news organizations and newspapers do good work, but not since the 70s has such an attack been fronted by the White House. It's time for the Obama era of partial coexistence be left in the past, because the next few years will rival that of decades past. Those in the White House press pool and those in the overarching branch of what is often considered the media have their work cut out for them. And we hope as journalism students, what they will do will be a lesson that we'd like to learn. That's our time. I want to thank our panelists and you for watching our show and let you know while all the other shows just like Scramble will be right here for you on the Scramble. Thank you and see you again.